This is the third video of this series. In this one, I will give you some time to answer the questions, then I will explain why the answers are correct. You should practice under pressure to see if you can find the answers during the given time. This is passage 3 from test 1, Cambridge 17. This has 3 question types: summary completion, yes, no, not given, and multiple choice questions. As you know, the sections increase in difficulty. And since this is the third text, it's more difficult than the first 2 texts we had in video 1 and video 2. We had summary completion in video 2, but this is different because it has a box of options. There are 2 types of summary completion, one with a box and one without the box of options. So this one has a box of options, and summary completion with a box of options is more difficult because when you don't have that box, you should just find the answers from the text and copy and paste them in the gaps. But here, when we have a box of options, you need to find the answers in the text and then find the paraphrases in the box and choose from the box and complete the gaps. So it has one more step, which makes it more difficult. So summary completion selects from a list of answers. It will assess your ability to understand details and/or the main ideas of a section of text. The answers are usually in the same order, and you don't need to read the whole text. The answers are from one part of the text. There are many different suggestions and strategies, but I would answer the questions using these steps. 1. Skim the summary to have a general understanding. Highlight the keywords. Guess the word class. Guess the answers if you can. Choose from the box. There are sometimes some clues that help you answer the questions even before reading. I will show you examples. Then scan the keywords in the text. Read the part carefully and decide, and choose the answer from the box. But make sure the answers are meaningful and grammatically correct. So let's begin. First, let's look at the title. The story behind the hunt for Charles II. So we need to go through the text quickly, skim it. By skimming, I mean just look at the keywords, the content words. Nouns, verbs, adjectives. And then highlight the keywords, try to guess the parts of speech. You can do that by paying attention to the words before and after the gaps. I've done this for you. You can pause and have a read. So let's clarify some of those keywords. The first one is for. To begin something, especially organizing people or things. The second one, abandon, to stop doing an activity. And the third one, contribute to be one of the causes of something. And then we have battle, a fight between armed forces. Lead to, result in. Flee, to escape, to run away because of danger or fear. Offer, to give. Capture, to take someone as a prisoner. Hiding, the situation of being in a place where you cannot be found. And the last one, reach, to arrive at a place. I said it's a good idea to guess the answers before reading. For instance, let's look at number 30. A something, a noun, was offered for Charles' capture. So they wanted to give something to those people who could capture or arrest the king. So probably a reward or something. It makes sense in this gap. The most suitable one seems to be B, large reward. A large reward was offered and so on. But we should read the text to make sure, right? It's a reading text, and these questions are designed based on that. This was just an example. You could pause and guess the rest of the answers, but you shouldn't spend too much time during the test on this stage. So we did step 1 to step 4, and now it's time to scan the keywords, read the part carefully, and then choose the answers. Alright, the first keyword here is Charles II's father, executed, parliamentarian forces, and the year. So we have this information in the first paragraph here, so it shows the rest of the answers must be after that. So Charles II then formed something with the Scots, and in order to become King of Scots, he abandoned an important something that was held by his father and had contributed to his father's death. So here we have this information in the first paragraph. after his father was executed by the parliamentarians in 1649, he sacrificed one of the very principles his father had died for and did a deal with the Scots and so on. So in the text we have sacrificed one of the very principles his father had. In the question we have abandoned for sacrificed, one of the very principles and important. In his father had, we had held by his father. And then we have did a deal with the Scots. In the question we had form a with the Scots. So he had a deal, and therefore we need to look for its paraphrase in the box. And in the second one, we have thereby accepting, we have a proper noun. We don't need to read that or to know the meaning, as the national religion. Thereby means as a result of this action. So now that we know what we're looking for, in the first one, deal, and in the second one, accepted some kind of religion, we can go to the box and start looking for the paraphrases. The first one, deal, the paraphrase for that is H, strategic alliance. Strategic alliance is a formal arrangement between organizations or countries to work together to achieve something. And for question 28, we know that we're looking for some kind of religious something. And here we have religious conviction. A religious conviction is a strong opinion or belief. So these two are meaningful here. The next keyword here is Worcester. And then the battle led to a something for the parliamentarians, and Charles had to flee for his life. So this information, the opposing sides then met outside Worcester. The paraphrase for that in the text is in line 1. The two sides finally faced one another at Worcester. And after being comprehensively defeated by the parliamentarian army, the king had to run away, right? So the two sides finally faced one another at Worcester. We have the opposing sides met outside Worcester. After being comprehensively defeated by the parliamentarian army, we have the battle led to a something for the parliamentarians. So we need to answer two questions. Who won the battle? The parliamentarian army. And who was defeated? The king was comprehensively defeated. Comprehensively means completely, and defeated have been beaten in a battle. Now, from the box, we have the opposite of that. A decisive victory means a defeat or victory in which the winner does much better than the loser. So here the parliamentarians are the winners, and this one makes sense here. The battle led to a decisive victory for the parliamentarians. And for question 30, we guessed it before reading a large reward. Let's see. So here we have the king found himself the subject of a national manhunt. Manhunt is an organized search for a person. And then we have with a huge sum offered for his capture. Huge means extremely large, and sum, an amount of money. So the only answer that makes sense here is large reward. A reward, an amount of money that is offered to somebody for helping the police or the authority to find a criminal or for finding something that is lost. Now, on the last question, after 6 weeks spent in hiding, he eventually managed to arrive, and then noun of continental Europe. In the text, we have over the following 6 weeks he managed, so it's quite the same, and then to evade the parliamentarians before seeking refuge in France. So over the following 6 weeks, we have after 6 weeks, he managed to evade the parliamentarians. In the question, we have spent in hiding. And before seeking refuge in France, we have he eventually managed to reach the and of continental Europe. Seek refuge means to get to a place that gives protection. And in the box, the only option that fits here is relative safety. It means compared to other places, it was safe for him to stay. Now we can check the answers here. For 27 we had H, 28 J, 29 F, 30B, and 31D. So I mentioned that earlier, the answers are usually in the same order and you don't have to read the whole text. Knowing this point saves you a lot of time. Now the second question type is yes, no, not given. In the previous video, we had true, false, not given. So the strategies we follow to answer these two question types are quite the same. The only difference between these two questions is that true, false, not given questions are fact-based, but yes, no, not given questions are opinion-based. It means that for this question type, we're identifying a writer's views or claims. This information is from IDP. It reads, "It's important to understand the difference between no and not given. No means that the views or claims of the writer explicitly disagree with the statement." Explicitly means clearly. It means that the writer expresses the view or makes a claim which is opposite to the one given in the question. Not given means that the view or claim is neither confirmed means prove true, nor contradicted. Contradicted, prove opposite. So that's the main difference between no and not given. In other words, for not given, there is no clue to decide if that is true or not. But for no, it's clearly stated that the answer is the opposite of what the text says. When there is no clue or no information to decide if it's yes or no, that is not given, and actually that would be the best answer. And when the statement is quite the opposite of what the text says, that is no. This is also important to know. When you read the text and decide, you need to rely on the information from the text, not based on what you know about the topic. You might be familiar with the topic, but these questions are designed based on the text, not based on your knowledge. So make sure you read and then decide. So as I mentioned earlier, this question type assesses your ability to recognize opinions or ideas. And so it is often used with discursive or argumentative texts. Discursive means the text involves discussion, and argumentative means the text involves evaluation and establishing a position on the topic. It means the writer takes sides. Now, these steps are quite the same as yes, no, not given. First, we read the questions and underline key information, then scan the text for keywords, and then read the part carefully and decide. And again, the answers appear in the same order, and knowing this saves you a lot of time. The first one appears in the second paragraph, so the answer must be in that part, and we need to read it closely or carefully. Now, the word trustworthy means able to be trusted. In the text, we have his intention when asking Pepys to commit his story to paper was to ensure that this most extraordinary episode was never forgotten. Now, let's pay attention to the keywords and the meaning of the text. Intention, something that you want and plan to do, or an aim. Commit something to paper, it's a phrase to write something down. Ensure, to make something certain to happen or to make sure. And extraordinary, very unusual, special, unexpected, or strange. So in the text, there is no information that he chose him because he trusted him. And there is no information that is the opposite of what the statement says. Therefore, the best option is not given. Charles's personal recollection of the escape lacked sufficient detail. Recollection and memory of something. Escape, to get away from a place. Lacked sufficient detail, not having enough details. Now, in the text we have the king related to him in great detail his personal recollections of the 6 weeks he had spent as a fugitive. Relate, it's a formal verb, to tell a story or describe a series of events. Recollection and memory of something. And fugitive, a person who is running away or hiding from the police or a dangerous situation. So the statement says it didn't have enough details, but in the text it says it was in great detail. So that's quite the opposite. Therefore, it is no. Next one. Charles indicated that he had planned his escape before the battle. Indicate, make something clear. In the text we have after the battle was absolutely lost as to be beyond hope of recovery, I began to think of the best way of saving myself. Commence, to begin something. Beyond hope, so badly that it will never get better. And recovery, become successful. So, in fact, when the king realized there was no hope, he decided to run away. And this is quite the opposite of what the statement says, that he had planned before the battle. Next, the inclusion of Charles's accounts, inclusion adding something, account story, is a positive aspect of the book. Positive, good or useful, and aspect means part. Now, in the text, we have joy of, something that gives you pleasure. Not least means there were several reasons, but this one was an important one. And positive, good, or useful. That's exactly the same as what the statement says. So it is yes. All right, again, as you can see, the answers are in the same order, one after another. Now, the last question type here is multiple choice questions. We had this type in the previous videos, but this one is different because you need to choose only one answer. These are the steps. First, we read the instruction to know the number of choices, if we have to choose one or two or more. Then find the topic in the question. It helps us to find and to locate the answer. Then we scan the text for the topic of the question, read the part carefully, read the options and highlight the keywords, check the options one by one and decide. And again, for this question type, the answers appear in the same order, and this is very helpful. So in this type, we need to choose one answer only. The first question, what is the reviewer's main purpose in the first paragraph? So we know where the location is. We just read the paragraph quickly to find the answer. So it's your turn to answer the question. 30 seconds. So in the first one, we have the Battle of Worcester. We have some information about this in line 2, but this is not the main idea or the main purpose of the paragraph. The main idea of each paragraph is usually presented in line 1 or in line 2. Here in line 1, we have To Catch a King tells us the story of the hunt for the King Charles II. This meaning is presented in option B, to give an account of, account description, circumstances leading to Charles II's escape. Circumstance, a fact or condition that affects a situation. Lead to begin a process that causes something to happen. That's exactly the same purpose. So it's your turn to answer the question. 30 seconds. So in the second one, why, include examples of fugitives' behavior, and the location is also clear, the third paragraph. In line 3, we have the day-by-day retelling of the fugitives' doings provides delicious details. Delicious here means very pleasant or enjoyable. We have this meaning in letter C, to illustrate, to show, how the events of the 6 weeks are brought to life. Bring to life means to make something exciting or interesting. So this meaning is presented in the text. Next one, your turn. points about Charles II and in the fourth paragraph. So here we have, this makes it all the more interesting that Charles II himself loved the story so much ever after. And then the second part, as well as retelling it to anyone who would listen, he ordered a series of initiatives to memorialize it. Initiative, plan, memorialize, to do something so that a person or event will be remembered by people. And also in the last two lines, we have somehow the same meaning. This is presented in option A. He chose to celebrate what was essentially a defeat. Celebrate, to show that an event is important by doing something special. Essentially, basically, and defeat, failure to win. It was a defeat, but the king celebrated that. It's quite odd, but it's what happened. Question 39, your turn. Does the reviewer say? Charles Spencer, and fifth paragraph. He has even-handed sympathy for both the fugitive king and the fierce republican regime that haunted him. Even-handed, fair, sympathy, understanding and care for someone else's suffering. We have this meaning in option B. He takes an unbiased approach to the subject matter. Unbiased, able to judge fairly. Approach, a way of considering or doing something, and subject matter, the things that are being written about. And the last question, your turn. Why he says the book doesn't quite hit the mark. So we have this phrase here, doesn't hit the mark. So we need to read before that to find out. In line 1 we have, the days and nights spent in hiding must have affected him in some way, but the book doesn't hit the mark. Affect means influence. We have this meaning in option D. It fails to address whether Charles II's experiences had a lasting influence. Address, to speak or write to someone. Lasting, continuing to exist for a long time or forever. And influence, the effect that the thing has on someone's decisions or behavior. In other words, the book did not mention anything about the effect of those days the king spent in hiding and had to run away from danger on his decisions, on his opinions, and on his behavior. So in that respect, the book does not quite hit the mark. It doesn't mention anything about that. Alright, hope you found it useful. Make sure you go back, read the paraphrases, record the useful vocabulary and words in your notebook, and review them. Have a good day.